said, why this place so dry? No love to find. You're the only one that ever acts kind. They all after me. What's happening? I wish that you could see what I see. Your boyfriend's a douche that thinks he's cool and doesn't deserve a girl like you.
What up? It's your boy Nagato Uzumaki with Ifer, and today I'm gonna be doing a video that somebody suggested me. It's what if Deku was neglected and was cheated on. Now, I really like the idea they had. The idea was what if Deku had like kind of an anime type power quirk, which I think it would be really cool. But I've watched a few anime, but I haven't watched that much. So his power is gonna be limited to what I know. So sorry about that. But so we cut to two 4-year-olds, one with black hair that was kind of down and kind of up with green dull eyes, and wearing a dark short sleeve shirt and dark shorts with black shoes, and a girl with green hair, happy eyes, and basically the exact opposite, wearing much brighter colors. The doctor said the girl's quirk is a very strong pyrokinesis. At this time, she could probably control a house fire, and I'd say in the future, if there was at least 2 burning buildings, she'd be able to put it out. The parents looked happily at their daughter and said, well, what's our son's quirk? What is our little Izu's quirk gonna be? I hope it's just as good as our daughter's. The man looked at the small boy with sorrow on his face and pity and said, I think the boy will either develop his quirk late or will be quirkless. The parents said, what? How could that be? The doctor pointed to a picture and said, the extra joint in his toe is usually a sign of being quirkless because the human body evolved to have only one joint in the toe. As you can see, your young son here has 2. Izuku never really cared much, but the fact that he couldn't be a hero still kind of hurt him. I mean, he wanted to be a hero, but it wasn't like that was his only dream. He knew he could probably do something else. Alright, the parents said as they left the hospital, praising their daughter highly and not even looking at their son, who had just disappeared to them the moment the doctor said those words. As we cut a few years later, we see the same boy and girl, but they're 12 or 13. No, 14. Yes, 14. We see the girl in a different room as the boy, as she's getting praised by her parents for finally saying yes to taking the entrance exams and being such a good person, even though they didn't know what she was like behind closed doors, or more or less didn't care. As we see the boy in his room, it was obviously the room of a weeaboo, or an otaku, as most of the people at school called him. He wore anime shirts, pants, shoes, hoodies, kept his hair down like anime characters he'd seen, and always tried to mimic their fighting style. And surprisingly, it worked out sometimes, but other times he failed miserably and was a laughing stock. But today, Izuku knew he was going to get a quirk. He had a feeling. As the boy was watching some anime that he liked, he'd watch basically every anime he could get his hands on. He had already finished the entire series of Naruto. He had watched Soul Eater. He'd watched One Punch Man. He'd watched Blue Exorcist. He'd watched Attack on Titan, Tokyo Ghoul. He'd watched all of it. The only thing is, today he was watching a new anime, Fire Force. He liked the main character Shinra and his spirit to become a hero. Izuku never really had that. He was just a laid-back type of guy who never really wanted to get that involved in other people's problems. So, he walked out of his room and walked past his family, who didn't even look at him once. He walked out of the door and down the street to the house of a friend. His only friend, actually. His name was Todoroki. Toya actually lived a few blocks down and was a bit older than Izuku, but they had a lot of the same interests in anime, video games, and stuff like that. As Izuku was walking to his house, he felt this sudden spark in his feet as he began to blast up through the air. As he was screaming, he looked down and realized fire was coming out of his feet, but it wasn't hurting him. Just like, what was the latest anime he watched? Alright, Shinra from Fire Force. He began saying that he was going to be a hero and be everyone's hero and wouldn't be able to wait to tell Toya about it. As he was blasting off, it cut out. So Izuku tried thinking about a Dola burst. And then it started up again as he began to blast to the sky, screaming, "Woohoo!" and "Oh yeah!" He made it to Toya's house and knocked on the door, or more or less flew over the gate they had, because, Toya's dad was the number 2 hero after all. As he flew over the gate and landed on the porch where Toya was talking to some of his other friends, Toya looked at him and said, "Hey, Izuku, you finally got a quirk?" Izuku said, "Yeah, and I think it's like Shinra's from Fire Force." And then Toya got this spark in his eye and said, "Izuku, what if it's more than that?" Izuku said, "What do you mean, Toya?" Like what? And then Toya said, "Well, what if any anime you've watched you could get power from?" Izuku thought about it. What was one of his other favorite animes? Oh, that's right, Tokyo Ghoul. He loved Kaneki. He was so cool and so calm. He wished he could be like him. So he tried thinking about the anatomy or whatever of a ghoul, and then it happened. He grew the powers of a ghoul. And then Toya said, "Awesome, Izuku, try something else." Izuku thought of another one of his favorite animes, Naruto. He tried using chakra to run up the side of Toya's house and onto the roof, and he could. Toya and his friends started shouting, because they all had the same interest, and even though Izuku was younger than all of them, they didn't mind him. They said, "Dude, look! Bro, I bet he's gonna become the number 1 hero. Oh, yeah." Izuku was thinking of other anime he'd watched. Oh, right, Assassination Classroom. So, Izuku said, "Hey, look at this," as he began to sprout 8 tentacles and then blasted off at Mach 20. He came back with a New York-style pizza from New York, by the way. And he gave it to Toya and his friends and said, "From New York, actually." And then Toya bowed down in respect and said, "Kuro-sensei, thanks." And as the rest laughed at the joke, Izuku said, "Wait till my family learns about this quirk." Toya said, "Oh no, you should wait and hide it from them until the entrance exam. You signed up, right?" Izuku said, I didn't realize I had a quirk till now, but yeah, I had had this feeling for quite some time, so I signed up." The rest were high-fiving each other as the number two's kid, Toya Todoroki, also going to UA and was in his second, almost third year, said, "Cool, dude. Well, I hope I see you there." As Izuku blasted off home with a Dola Burst, the power he knew as Shinra's ability, but now knew as any ability he wanted he could have as long as he knew it from the anime. As he landed in front of his house, Azumi opened the door and said, "What are you doing, you useless idiot? Get out of my way." She hated him and how he was always such a shut-in. She thought he was useless. He could have at least tried to talk and make friends or something. Izuku said, yeah, whatever. And she said, "Hey, you should respect me. I'm your sister." And he said, "You should respect me. I'm your older brother." And she says, "Well, you're only older by a year." Or no, he's only older by 5 minutes. So she says, "Well, you're only older by 5 minutes." And he says, "Well, you should respect your elders." And she says, "Well, you should respect family." And he says, "Well, obviously you don't." And she just stood there, baffled and angered at the boy who she thought was quirkless. She just shoved him out of the way, and he let her to think she still had dominance over him. And she said, "You're gonna do my chores tonight." And he said, yeah, whatever, as he walked inside to be greeted by the angry glare of his so-called parents. They said, "Why are you speaking to our daughter that way, you brat?" He said, "Shut up." They said, "What are you going to do about it? Fight?" And he said, "No, I would, but I don't want to show you what I've got just yet." As he left and got prepared for his 10 months of gruel-long training. And, by the way, Izuku never had the incident with the sludge villain. Izumi did. So Izumi got one for all, just so I could make her even more cocky. Also, she's also dating Bakugo, just because. So, as Izuku was heading to the entrance test arena, he saw Katsuki and Izumi holding hands. He looked at them with disgust and thought about how they were going to get destroyed if they were even in the same test ground as him. He went inside and tried to think of an anime that he knew that had some smart characters in it. And then he remembered, alright, Death Note. He thought of who he wanted to be like the most. Alright, L. As his hair or his skin went even paler and his eyes got even duller and more grayish black, he sat in his chair, but not how he'd normally sit with his feet up and him listening to music. No. He sat down and with his hands resting on his knees and his head almost on his knees. And as he looked around, he saw a lot of people who looked like they had probably passed. He saw a boy he recognized as Shoto Todoroki. Oh no, I forgot. Shoto Todoroki didn't take the entrance exam. He took, I forgot what he took, but so he didn't take the entrance exam. But he saw famous, uh, famous, family hero people there, like Tenya Ida, who was part of the Tenya family, who were known for passing down the Ingenium name.